They fell in love.
Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I hope you had a lovely dinner and that you are well watered and well fed. And it is now time to get down to the business of what we are here for. So if I could just get everybody seated, that would be fantastic. And could we please welcome to the stage Peter Taylor and Rodney Coleman. Peter, can we start by saying thank you for allowing us to celebrate your life in this way? You were hesitant when the Cartier Trust approached you. You weren't sure that you were worthy of such attention. Tonight, all 190 of us are going to show you that you so very are. Where to start in the story of your life? In your own words, childhood was not the happiest of times. You had a beautiful home in upper working class neighbourhood of Kamo in Whangarei, but all was not as it seemed. We won't dwell, but you yourself had confessed that childhood was harder than it should have been. The kids at school called you Tubby Taylor. You were a softie, a quiet boy, with no interest in cars, bikes, or any rough and tumble. As the oldest of 3 children, you began taking on responsibility of looking after your family at a very young age. You have said that your household was somewhat dysfunctional and that your parents divorced when you were 13. At that time, along with your older sister Yvonne, you moved onto a farm with your father. One of the earliest passions for you was horses and ponies. You followed friends around with horses day after day, just hoping that they would give you a ride. Eventually, your dad agreed to Pony Club, so you and your sister Yvonne shared an old part Clydesdale with 6 other children. A little bay pony with a cropped mane, you say that Prince was a sweet-natured 12-year-old, a gentleman in every way. Every time the 2 of you set off along the riverbank, you would forget about your bad grades and your less than ideal home life. Prince brought a dose of self-esteem. Owning a pony meant that you went from being the fat little outcast to someone with a bit of credibility. We are lucky tonight to have someone perfectly qualified to talk about your early life and to give us some insight into Peter Taylor from a family perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Peter's younger sister, Yvonne Godfrey.
Thank you.
Yvonne, thank you for joining us this evening.
It's a pleasure.
Peter is the elder sibling in your family.
Yes.
You are 2 years younger than him, and then you have a sister, Katie, who sadly can't be here this evening. She's a year younger than you. We've heard just a very brief introduction to Peter's early life. Can you give us a little more insight into Peter the kid? What character traits did he display as a child?
You talked about him having a great sense of responsibility, which he did from a very young age. And let me get this clicker going. I want to show you a slide. Don't know if this is going to work, Jason. Is it turned on? No. Okay. Let's just go back a little, if I can get this to the beginning. I'd like you to share in the whānau. Can I have an IT person here, please? I can't be gorgeous and great at IT, I'm afraid. But the story I want to share about Pete as a very young boy, Mum and Dad were dairy farmers milking cows, and Mum had to milk too because Dad couldn't run the herd on his own. When Pete was only 6 years old, he would wake up in the morning, put me and Katie into a pram and take us up to the cowshed. And Dad had made one of the bales into a playpen. Do you remember that, darling? And we used to sit in the playpen and wait until Mum and Dad had finished milking. And it cows all around and so on. But another memory I have is one day, do you remember when Mum said, "Now, darling, take those scissors down to Mrs. Dempster and don't cut the girl's hair." Do you remember that? Well, that was Pete's opportunity to cut the girl's hair, of course. If we can go back, I really want to go back and show you these slides. So obviously there's nobody IT here in the house. Oh well, we'll just continue.
Does it need to go back?
Yes, it needs to go back. We need to go back to the family and then to the hair cutting experience. So obviously Peter didn't hear "don't cut the girl's hair," and he cut our hair off, but he was amazingly protective of Katie and I. In fact, I think I was in my 30s, Pete, before I said to you, "I think I can take it on my own now, darling. You don't need to worry about me anymore." So he was just the most wonderful brother, protective from that early age.
Yvonne, we know Peter has achieved many dreams and goals that he set for himself. When did that all start? What was he like when he was young?
Well, you talked about Peter being so passionate about horses, and that photograph of Peter in the uniform, in the riding uniform, is extraordinary because he's so proud and yet he didn't own a horse. And we were called footers, and footers meant that if we could just touch a horse, smell a horse, be near a horse, we were happy. So Peter and I used to run behind the horses wherever they went, and we would set up for the pony club and pack down at the end of the day. We were just so grateful to get a ride, weren't we, love? And one day our father was driving home on a summer's evening, and he came across Peter running behind the horses, and it literally broke his heart. And Peter had been begging for a pony for a long time, and Mum and Dad bought him Prince, and that was that little pony you saw. And of course that led on to him, he had a few years where he didn't ride, but then the adult passion, and he went, of course, and rode in 8 countries internationally, was a very, very well-known rider.
And finally, Yvonne, what kind of brother has Peter been to you and Katie?
He's been a wonderful brother. He gave me away at my wedding. You might have seen that photo. He gave Katie away at one of hers. She's a good girl. She's very popular. And anyway, he gave us away at our weddings, and he was always there. But I tell you what, Pete, you've been so much fun. I tell you what, your adventures around the world and all the travelling you've done, all the things you've done, keeping up with you has been harder than keeping up with the Kardashians, you know. And but he has modelled, I think what's just so great about Pete is he has modelled passion, of course, but work ethic, none paralleled to Pete's work ethic, and excellence. Everything Peter does is excellent, and I thank you for that, sweetheart, because you've always been out the front, forging away. Your story, your courageous story, you have turned it into a teaching, I don't know what, extravaganza, so that other people could be inspired and learn from you. We're so grateful for that. We just really appreciate that. We love you, Pete, our whole family. They're all here. Anna and Sarah and Scotty. Gav couldn't be here tonight, but Simon, of course, you know, he just loves you to pieces. Simon and I have been married for nearly 39 years, and Pete has just been such a part of that journey. So we just love you so much. Katie and Mum are so sorry they couldn't be here, and I just love you so much. And I want to thank you, Rodney. You've just been such a blessing, and I just thank you for your kindness and your love to my beautiful brother. Thank you.
Yeah. There you go. It seems like popularity runs in the family. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter's sister, Yvonne Godfrey. Okay.